Hello, everyone. Y'all
Hello.
look so great. Beautiful people.
Thank you.
Flattery will get you everywhere.
I try.
There you go.
You have the right bridge this time, Leroy.
Yes, I had to go back to my son and tell him I need a Brooklyn Bridge. And he found it for me. So
Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Peter Fleming, the chair of Brooklyn Community Board 6, and welcome to the December Community Board 6 meeting. Obviously, we're continuing to meet in this manner because of, all the things that are going on in our city and in our state. Today, I'm coming to you live from Asbury Park, New Jersey. Something that the pandemic allows me to do because I can host from virtually pretty much anywhere. So again, thank you all for joining us. Some of you may have an agenda that has the elections committee listed on it. That was resolved last month with the re-election of the existing officers, so we will not be covering that. We also will be covering things in a slightly different order because David Briggs has he's been studying for an exam, so we're gonna take pity on him. And after we do the executive, my report and Mike's, we'll go right to David to go through his motions. And then we'll let him get some rest so that he's ready for his exam. I don't have a lot to say other than, it's good to see everyone looking so well. I won't say I have any strong impressions of all the things that are going on. I had a Facebook friend, a woman I grew up with, whose mom recovered from COVID, and she's 88 years old, and she's doing okay. So it's nice to know that, just because she was elderly, that she didn't automatically, see the worst of it. In bulletins, this is not exactly news, but for those of you who didn't read Mike's message, we expect city planning to certify the Gowanus rezoning on January 19th, and that will start our time clock, and we'll schedule our hearings based on that. It's entirely possible that, and we expect that we will have presentations in both landmarks and land use and economic waterfront development, because they both have different perspectives to lend to it. And we hope that they will agree on the ultimate, disposition of this. Because of the fact that we're not going to be able to give you every detail when we vote on this ourselves, I urge you, if you're able, to sit in on, at least one of the presentations from city planning at either landmarks and land use or economic and waterfront development, so that you know the basic details and understand what you're voting on. And I'll ask, Ty and Mike to make sure that everyone on the board is aware of when those Zoom meetings are being held, so that they can listen in on them. And it's not necessary that you participate in those meetings unless, of course, you serve on those committees. But even if you just listen into the presentation and hear some of the questions, it'll give you a sense of what the community is feeling, what concerns some of our landmarks and land use gurus have on it, as well as the economic waterfront development people, so that when we ultimately vote on it in either February or March, we will have you'll have a well-rounded perspective. So that's the only thing that I have, other than to wish everyone a happy holiday season, whatever holiday it is you'll be celebrating in the next few weeks. I hope you had a safe and happy Thanksgiving. and that you have a safe and happy Christmas. My husband and I will be spending Christmas in Asbury Park, so we put up our little 5-foot pink tree, and we're going to go from there. So I'm going to recognize our district manager, Mike Graciopo, to give any remarks that he may have, and then we'll move on to the landmark and land use items so that David can take his leave and get his rest and be ready for his exam. So, Mike.
Thank you, Peter. I'll be brief. Just following up on what Peter said, of course, my newsletter, as people know, I do give alerts about the upcoming meetings and things like that, but also, and we've gotten more views than we used to, all the meetings are up on YouTube, and I do link to a Google Drive with the presentation materials and things like that. And if you have trouble finding it, I mean, they're on our website on the archive page. Like after the meeting happens, it just goes and it says, view this meeting on YouTube, it's there. But if that is, if you want to just reach out to me, I'm always happy to reply, mike@bkcb6.org. And if you want to sign up for the messages, for the newsletter and things of that nature, you can send me an email, go to brooklyncb6.org and sign up, or text BKCB6 to 22828. I'll be brief, and good luck to David on his test. And one other thing, and Eric McClure reported this, as I know he attended Borough Board last night. The applications for new board membership are open until February 12th. And I just found this out, and I know people that know from previous years. I'll send it if you're on the list to be renewed, I will send you a reapplication reminder by Friday. But you will still have till February, but the earlier the better. And once you send it in, let me know. In which case, I can make sure the Borough President's Office knows that you still want to be reappointed and things of that nature. Anyway, that's that. And like Peter said, happy holidays.
So,
I'm sure you'll hear from me.
Just before we go on to David, and David, remember you have to unmute. When we vote, as we did last time, it seemed to work out. If you are against a particular motion, please note it in the comments, and we will, we'll take note of it from there. Most of this stuff isn't terribly controversial. So, but if you do wish to be, and if you are abstaining, please say that, and if you are abstaining for cause, please indicate that it is for cause, because that counts differently. But if you can, do that in the comments. Obviously, if any vote is close, we'll figure out another strategy. But for now, we're going to work with noting in the comments if you wish to vote against a motion. So I'm going to turn it over to David Briggs, who's going to present the landmarks and the land use items as I understand it.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you for the kind words about my tests, and thank you, Mike, and thank you to those in the chat. Lest anybody think I'm testing for the NASA space program, I'm actually testing for passive house certification. It's a pretty energy efficient way of building, and I hope to become an expert at it. So anyway, for a more sustainable city. Okay, so we're going to start off with 433 9th Street, legalization of third floor rear windows in the Park Slope Historic District extension. I think Ty is going to bring it up here. So before we go through it, just to give everybody a little background here, this project had gone through landmarks, and then the owner changed something without going back to landmarks, and so now they're asking us to okay it after it's been complete. So there's a site plan. Go to the next slide, please. Here's the elevation of the building on the block. Next slide. Another view from the top. Next slide. Another view from above. Next slide, please. Okay, so on the left is what was approved by landmarks, and what's on the right is what actually was built. You can see that the two windows that Ty is circling were not installed as approved on the left. And from our understanding and from the architect's presentation, there are 2 bathrooms here. So the owner decided to put 2 much smaller windows in. And that's the extent of the application. I don't know, Ty, was there more? I think there was a couple views across the way to show that this is not dissimilar from a couple other buildings. You go through the slides. Yeah. So there, I'm sorry, just go back one. Yeah, so the one on the left is the subject property. The one on the right is across their rear yard, across the donut, looking at another house that has the 2 small windows on the right. So they felt there was some precedent. Go to the next slide.
Presumably that's the bathroom.
They're saying that those 2 windows are in bathrooms, yes.
Right.
This is just another view. It doesn't really tell us a whole lot. Keep going, Ty. Is there another slide or is that it?
That's the last slide.
Okay, so if you go, just go back up and look at the photo. I think that's probably the best thing. The photo, the one after this. Yeah. So there were some comments. Allison, Glenn, and Joanna contributed to the comments quite a bit. We, as a group, as a committee, we expressed a bit of disappointment that the owner didn't go through the proper channels at LPC and decided to sort of request forgiveness rather than ask for permission. However, despite that, the committee, we did not have a quorum, so we'll need a motion. The committee did recommend to approve it with the following condition, that those 2 dark windowsills should be painted to match the rear wall in color. And those that were present at the meeting unanimously approved it.
Can I ask for a motion from the floor, please, to that effect?
So moved.
Thank you, Jerry. Second?
I second it.
Thank you. Okay, any discussion on this? Comments, questions, anyone? Hearing none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor, please say aye. If you're against, please note so in the chat.
Aye.
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 Okay,
Aye. Aye.
thank you, everyone. Looks like the motion passes. I didn't see anybody being against it. So David, your next motion, please.
So the next application we looked at was for 282 Garfield Place. This is a post-approval application for changes to the rear elevation design that was originally approved at staff level. So this is a little odd. Go to the next slide, please, Ty. Okay, so there's some more drawings. Again, I'll just give sort of an overview here. On the left is the existing elevation. In the middle is the elevation that was approved at staff level by LPC. And on the right, there are new openings proposed, sort of a new pattern of openings, I should say. You can see the red lines on the 2 other elevations. And you'll note that at the bulkhead or penthouse that was built on top, there is a stained glass window that's being relocated from down below. Ty, if you could circle where it was, you go to the center elevation, the top right window. No, the center elevation. Yeah, I think it's one of these 2 windows that's going up there. Maybe it's the one on the 2nd floor.
Yeah, I think it's actually the 2nd floor.
Okay. And apparently that triggered the public review. Otherwise, it would have been considered at staff level. So questions and comments, again, mostly from Allison and Joanna. And since this is the only thing we were really looking at, just reorganizing the windows and moving that stained glass window up, we recommend, and again, we'll need a motion, we recommend that it be approved as presented.
I honestly like the new one better, to be very honest with you. So,
Yeah.
can I have a motion to that effect, please?
A second, Bridget.
Moved.
Thank you. Any discussion on this? Hearing none, we're going to vote. All those in favor, please say aye. If you are against for any reason, please note so in the chat.
Aye.
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 Great, thank you, everyone. I didn't see anybody against. David, your next motion.
So now we move to land use, and I thought if it's okay, we could do Monadnock's project first. Yeah. Okay, so this is a proposed rezoning of a lot that's just north of the Smith and 9th Street Station elevated railway. So the first part of this is Monadnock's background. I'm just going to go through this. They obviously are a well-entrenched business in the community. They're currently located on the canal next, just north of 3rd Street. This is just another sort of aerial view. Well, I'm sorry. Let's go back. Ty. So the yellow there, the Huntington Street site, is where they want to move their offices. It's in the IBZ. Sorry, go ahead, Ty. So here's a site plan. What's in the yellow dashed line there is where the proposed rezoning will take place, just south of Public Place. It's just outside of the rezoned area. Keep going. So that is the lot in question, lot number 8. That's where they're building their project, but they're asking for the entire block to be rezoned. Keep going. Digital map, keep going. There's a site where, as some of you may know, school buses are parked currently, and the existing bulkhead. Keep going. Some more images from the 9th Street Bridge. Keep looking north. Looking down towards where the buses are from, I think this is Huntington Street, yeah, and Smith, yeah. Looking east. Keep going, Ty. So it's currently an M12, if memory serves. M21, sorry. Right. You can see it's circled in the red there on the zoning map. So the FAR is 2.0 and the maximum height of the front wall is 60 feet. If we go to the next one, what they're really looking for is to reduce the on-site parking requirement. The height and bulk of the building, even though it's going to be a different zoning district, will not change. So here are their plans. Next one. Yeah, so they're going to an M23, which has a lower parking requirement. Keep going. So as you see, the FAR for M23 is the same, and the maximum height is the same. And actually, there are no parking requirements. So this is a rendering of the building. The architect of record, Datner Architects, was present, as well as Scape to present the promenade. Keep going. There's a detailed plan there showing a little bit more about the promenade, which and eventually hopefully would connect to the subway entrance if that area just below the site was able to go under and wrap around the 9th Street station. Thank you, Ty. Keep going. Just a plan of the promenade, a conceptual design at this point. Some more details. And I should point out, I mean, I think this is obvious to most people on the board, that this is just a design. All we're really here to consider is the rezoning.
Thanks very much for watching.
Keep going. Some views of the building they've currently got designed by Bernheimer Architecture. Aerial bird's eye view of the promenade. the conceptual photos, sort of a section diagram showing how the street end will be terraced down to the canal, providing a more absorptive soft edge rather than the typical hard bulk steel sheet piling. And this is a little further along where you have the promenade where people are walking.
And Florida police with guns drawn, ready to run home. She says it's because she accused
And more details of the promenade. And for those who were, following the zoning, it's, this is somewhat similar to, I think, what aspirationally is being considered for the promenade along the canal. Like as it gets redeveloped, if the zoning goes through.
is ahead. Health director of LA County, which has seen its hospitalization rate.
By the way, someone's got their microphone
Yeah, somebody
on.
who's
We're
talking
hearing a
about
conversation.
hospitalization rate, could you please mute your line?
Thank you. So here's a view of the building from the east side of the canal, sort of, if you can imagine, sort of floating off the edge of the F train, G train platform. Looking towards Lower Manhattan in the background there. The green roof on top of the red section of the building. Keep going, Ty. And I think that was about, was there any more, Ty, or is that it?
That's basically it.
Okay. So there was quite a lengthy discussion about this, particularly about the public amenities along the canal and the activity and the proposed retail, and also boating access from the canal, which was not shown in any of the renderings. There's also apparently Brad Lander's office is in conversation with the developer about the amount of dedicated industrial floor area that will be part of the new development. Someone else can correct me here if I'm wrong. I asked the question and I didn't get a super clear answer, but I believe Monadnock's going to take it's about 90,000 square feet. Monadnock's going to take about a third of it. And I think the negotiation on it and Monadnock's occupancy is defined as industrial. And the additional amount that's being negotiated is somewhere between another 10 or 15% of floor area. Does that sound right to those who attended the meeting?
Yeah, that sounds right, David.
Okay.
Did you mean it, David? I didn't hear that it was an additional 10%. I thought that that it was that the most they were planning to get secured was 10 to 15%, not additional.
Well, Monadnock's taking a third of the building, so that's 30.
Right, but we're
3%
talking
right there.
about that's what they're using now. But what the argument, not the argument, but what their discussion is about what will be required in the future, and that's the point that we kind of, I don't think they've come to any decision, but what I heard them say was it was only 10 to 15% would be secure going forward if Monadnock ever left. I could be
Okay,
wrong.
so that's you might. Honestly, it was unclear to me.
Yeah, I think because they don't have a number, they haven't come anywhere. But I think that's why there was clearly some disagreement, because they might be at 30% now, but the question was where are they going to wind up?
Okay, so that's something that we can certainly comment on. Again, we'll need a motion from the floor on this. Yeah.
David,
We have to have a motion first, please.
yeah, so I made the motion at the committee, and I'll happily do it again. I just want to say that I think Ariel is right. It's not clear whether we're targeting the 33% plus or a restrictive declaration requiring at least 10 or 15%. But the motion says that the application is approved contingent upon a restrictive declaration being reached with the office of Brad Lander. So we don't need to negotiate that because they are. And I just want to say that the other thing that came up is I've been advised that in addition to the requirement that they reach this restrictive declaration, I also said that we should encourage them to provide a more active, more inviting public amenity along the waterfront. So it's not the typical passive couple of benches and a walkway, which at a dead end might encourage the wrong behavior. So
David,
I will make that motion to accept the application with a restriction that they reach an agreement with Brad Lander's office on a restrictive declaration for the industrial use, and to request a more creative use of the community space so as to promote the best use.
Well, I think what I wrote down, but
Travis,
I hadn't gotten there yet,
second.
but it was to design a more creative public amenity along the promenade based on the committee and community feedback.
The concern
I'll second
was-
that.
Yeah, the concern was that unless we use words other than encouragement, if we require a more creative use, it is more likely to get included in the Department of City Planning's consideration. If we just say encourage, the creative use, it's going to be less likely to make it through into the final decision.
Okay, we have a second. Can I ask David a question?
Sure.
Sure.
David, you said that we're actually voting on, the only thing that we're voting on is the change in the parking requirement technically. That means that the drawing and design of the building, as well as the public amenities on the waterfront, can change. Is that correct? Is that what you said?
Almost. I said what we're voting on is the change in zoning district. Zoning designation, not just the parking.
Right. So
If I may comment,
we have no guarantee that the
Let
final
Jerry
design-
finish this.
We have no guarantee that the final design of the building or the amenities will match anything that was presented. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes. But I think Mark was running this portion of the meeting. Mark, I think you just wanted to add something?
yeah, two things. One is, in addition to their office space, their construction yard will be there. And with regard to the waterfront design, some of that is included within the zoning changes they're requesting. The actual promenade is not technically as shown, but it was reviewed and discussed together with the Conservancy, and Andrea Parker commented that it is a more robust proposal than that which took place, let's say, in Lightstone and other areas. Thanks.
Peter,
My
Peter,
concern,
Yes, go ahead.
I
ahead, Bridget.
just want to ask, is there a caveat that we can put in that the community be notified of the air and the water testing during the construction, and making sure that the community is advised when the construction is happening, what's going on, like having a newsletter given by the company, what's happening, because the community needs to know, because it's by the Gowanus, and the EPA has found that the Gowanus is very toxic, and we're just very concerned about that as a community member myself. So would that be an appropriate caveat for the
I don't know if
company?
that needs to be in the motion or if we just ask them for that, update. Usually when that kind of thing happens, unless it's a huge development, we just usually ask them to keep us apprised and to, and to make sure that their neighbors are apprised of their activities. Anybody else have a thought on that?
Yeah, they've already, hello? They've already upgraded the bulkhead, along the canal. So the likelihood of some sort of interference with the canal in the future is minimal.
I guess
Mark.
I'm still thinking that we're getting we're buying sort of a pig in the poke on design of the building, the way in its appearance, the green roof, because since we have no control over that, they're pretty pictures, but we don't really know what we're gonna get. And that's concerning for something that's being right on the canal, that we have no control over what it looks like and no guarantee that it will resemble what was presented in the presentation. So
Is that,
it's pretty pictures.
is that
but
something that we can have? And why don't we have it here?
It's a zoning change. It's not,
Anybody know?
it's not a BSA action. So you don't get
Okay,
specific.
there you go.
No, I understand that. I'm
that's the
wondering
answer.
if we can include them, if we can request in our motion for them to come back with their design for some kind of approval or review so that we can have some input in the design, in the final accepted design. That's what I'm looking for.
Glenn's
Well,
motion.
shouldn't
he
they,
can
I have a
decide.
question. Shouldn't they come back because it's being stated that they're negotiating with Brad Lander's office? When do we get the information from that negotiation, whether or not it's 33 plus or it's just 33? Shouldn't there be some kind of addendum to that in the motion?
Can I make a recommendation?
Sure.
So, I mean, this is a ULURP action and it's a straightforward rezoning. So I think we should vote on that. I think we could certainly add to that, I mean, look, there's a lot of moving parts north of this site, public place obviously being a big one. And I see someone's here tonight probably to speak about the park that's proposed there. I think Monadnock doesn't strike me as being an unreasonable group of people. And I think we certainly could say we request that they come back with their final design. And I think we'll have a better handle on what, if it's appropriate or not, because we'll have a better handle on what's happening with the rest of the rezoning, because they have to go through the entire ULURP process before they start committing funds to completing the design of this new building and the promenade.
Sure, that sounds reasonable to me. Sure.
Is there any reason why somebody's feedback is?
Is there any reason why they can't just have it be part of the rezoning?
What?
Too late to include that plot, that section and that parcel within the overall zoning. It was not included.
Oh, I'm sorry. You mean
Yes.
as part of the mapping? No, it is too late.
And it's part of the IBZ. It's not part of the rest of the area.
You mentioned about the subway station entrance. Is the plan to allow people to go up that promenade and get into the subway from there on that side?
The property that just to the south of them is controlled by the MTA right now. So the MTA would have to grant access and make that final connection. I mean, to Glenn's point with the dead end, it would no longer be a dead end if they could get access across that property to 9th Street.
Yeah, can we ask for that to be in there somewhere, that be reviewed when the school when planning takes effect for this, when the school planning is going, that be looked at? Would that be a possible way of getting us at least to say something and to relook at that?
I don't see
Does that
how
need
the
to be
owner
a
of the
separate
property has
motion?
any,
I'm just asking, I don't know.
I don't see how Monadnock can control that.
What I heard is, David, just forgive me. I heard that the school issue for the ULURP was going to be totally put on the city portion, that it wasn't going to be part of the discussion of the whole ULURP, of the Gowanus rezoning. Is that true? That's what I heard.
What school issue you guys talking about?
The building of a school.
Yeah,
That was going to be part of development.
On public place?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
but that's, I think, at least according to the last presentation, that's at the other end of public place. It's not near this lot.
Okay. But the city is supposed to be in charge of that. It's not it's not going to be part of the development. The city will site the schools. do
There
the
is,
school
there is
site.
no school proposed for this site.
Okay,
Now-
Since,
Well, go ahead. Go ahead, Leroy.
no, what I was gonna say is
Leroy?
since we're really only talking about the changes to the parking, the parking regs, couldn't we just add to the motion as a friendly amendment to Glenn's motion, what Jerry was saying, in terms of having them come back to us once they have their final plans?
Yeah, that's sort of what I was suggesting.
I'm sorry. But I
No,
didn't
that's
hear,
okay.
is Glenn accepting as a friendly amendment?
Well, our vote is going to go to city planning. Brad's going to have a say on this. I think since it seems to be understood that Monadnock is a reputable company, a longtime neighbor, that we could also just ask them politely, keep us informed. We would like to see your final plans and know what we're getting. As a trade-off for our supporting their ULURP request. I don't know that we need to put it in the motion because we can ask for anything, and we can ask for more creative use, and we can ask for the restrictive declaration to be negotiated. But anything more than that, I think, is sort of out of our jurisdiction.
I don't really think it's out of our jurisdiction to just ask them to come back. I think a lot of us have been around a long time to know that even great developers sometimes change their tune sometimes once they get our approval. So to just say to them, once you get your final approval, to come back to the board just to show to us, it's not something that we can disapprove that they can't build, but at least keep us abreast of what the final plan is. I don't see why that would be out of our purview.
I just don't know what the mechanism would be once we agree with their request. Nothing really obligates them to come back to us unless we ask them nicely. It's not going to be part of the ULURP. There's not going to be any kind of restrictive covenant on the land that requires them to come back and show us what the building looks like.
So I agree with Glenn on this, because part of this whole rezoning conversation and what's come up in the IBZ conversation is the look ahead and a reduction in the changes to zoning and parking. So Monadnock is sort of first to the table with this, but yeah, if we can add some language that sort of keeps us in the loop and helps us work with them as neighbors, it's always a good thing. But the parking is something that the IBZ has been asking for a very long time.
The developer's representative said in the chat that, they would be happy to keep us apprised of design changes and everything like that. So I don't know if that's something that we can accept, or do we need to have more formal language in the motion?
If someone has some specific language in order to incorporate this without overcomplicating it, I'm happy to listen to it.
Well, if the developer has said this in the chat, isn't that good enough? These are public meetings.
It's good enough for me.
It's good enough for me.
Me too.
Anybody
Go with that.
object?
I would go with that. Okay. I'm good.
So can I read the motion again?
Yes, please.
Please.
Okay,
Oh, wait,
recommendation to,
I have another question, point of question. My hand's been up.
Yes, go ahead.
So
Go ahead, Ariel.
okay, so the change from M21 to M23, the only difference is the parking, which is terrific, and I don't think there was any discussion about that. Everyone seemed to be in favor. So one thing I do wonder about is, and I hadn't had a chance to look at this before the meeting last week, but in going from M1 to M2, you lose out on use group 4 and 5, and use group 5 is business and professional offices. So one of my questions is, I'm not sure, I'm wondering about the conversation that Brad Lander's office is having, because I thought they said that they were going to be having offices up there, and that's not allowed in M2, I think, unless things have changed. It might change. I'm not total expert on this. I was looking at, some of my old documents on this, but I'm just wondering about, and maybe, Paul, more about this because, if all, they really wanted is the reduction in parking, I'm not sure why that wasn't, there are other ways to do that. I happen to think the M23 is a better zoning tool for an IBZ, and so I'm very much in support of that. I'm just wondering, to me, the use is very important. It says pretty clearly no business and offices are allowed, and also nursery schools or childcare centers. So that's fine. That's totally fine. But I'm just wondering if anyone can explain why they're having the discussions with Brad Lander's office about percentage of manufacturing and office space.
Can anyone offer an answer?
I'm not familiar with their direct conversations, but I know that Brad has been very strongly advocating for the IBZ to keep that type of use, and anyone who's looking to do anything, I think he's holding us to a standard in the IBZ that we're requesting that, it remain industrial and keep that type of use. So I think he's doing that part for us, and Monadnock is contributing to it and voluntarily trying to come up with some solution. So that's all I know about it.
And that zoning, the medium manufactured M23 is the one that they're sort of targeting for the IBZ. Is that what you said, Paul? That they're
I don't think they're necessarily targeting anything. I think the studies and the conversations that we've been having with regards to the IBZ is that given all the information that city planning has accumulated from us and other property owners and businesses, that it will be used on a individual basis, a case-by-case basis with developers or project or property owners that come to DCP and the IBZ looking for some relief, whether it's for parking or some sort of growth to sustain their businesses. So I don't think there's any overall goal for any one specific zoning, which could be a problem because everyone could be looking at, 20 different types of things. But again, I think this is all part.
So in terms of the use, then I would just say, David, in terms of I would say we should go out. I mean,
Looking is not out of scale, so yeah.
I think instead of saying we're just going to agree with whatever Brad Lander's office says, since an M2 shouldn't have office space, it really is meant for, it can do retail stores and stuff. So maybe they're trying to keep it. I don't know. I'm not sure. We don't know what the uses are. Maybe he's trying to be very specific about uses. I don't know how prescriptive we want to get, but I think at least we should go in and say that 30% is what we're looking for. I don't know that we would not do it, but I don't think we should just say whatever Brad's office says is good for us. I think we should be a little bit more, definitive about what we think we want to see in the IBZ.
Yeah.
So
That's
one
something we can probably
question for
cover in the
Paul and
letter.
one comment. Ariel, the offices could be an accessory use to the construction activities. So that may be how they're getting offices in there.
Yeah. Yes.
Paul, I'm curious, when you were on the call the other night, were you under the impression that it was just 10%? Because you didn't, I noticed that you seemed to be okay with it, or were you under the impression it was 30 plus 10%?
No, I was under the impression that it was their use plus an additional amount to be negotiated. And I think another question that was unclear is if Monadnock ever decided to relocate or shut their business, that 33% would remain industrial use. So yeah, that was my understanding. And I think Ariel clarified it from her understanding. But again, you made it clear that it was sort of confusing to begin with. But yeah.
If I may, it was clear from the conversation with Lander's office that Lander is in favor of this project with the caveat that they have to work out some sort of agreement with regard to permanent space, which in other conversation I was told is likely to be some sort of maker space and that kind of use. And the intricacies of negotiating that are far beyond this board. With our understanding that we would like to make sure that there are still manufacturing uses is a very good idea, but trying to be prescriptive on that only will lead us to be ignored rather than to actually advance our purposes.
Yeah, perhaps that
So-
communication should be with Brad's office so that his negotiations, at least understand what our position is and what our goal is.
Sure.
I agree with you, Peter, that we can separately ask Brad to keep the industrial percentage as high as possible, and they'll negotiate that.
And the second question I had was about the areaway along the canal, because I know at some point they were saying they weren't going to require it in the IBZ because that was going to be an onerous amount of cost to any IBZ owner trying to do anything on their property. So I wasn't clear. Is that setback along the waterfront something they're giving to the public, or is that a requirement
That's a requirement.
in the IBZ? So anybody in the IBZ, is that going to become part of? I mean, that's what I'm asking. I don't know if that's going to be
Well,
the
we
same
have it
for.
with Whole Foods, we have it with Lowe's.
I think it's
So
any waterfront development.
I wasn't sure if it was.
Yeah, the developer said in her comment earlier that Department of City Planning was mandating what they were doing there.
Is it worth hearing from Tom McMahon? He's adding things to the chat.
Technically, no one, they're not permitted to speak. I mean, you're free to repeat anything he puts in the chat, but if we can avoid departing too much from our general rules, we're probably safer that way.
Okay, so Tom has written, offices are allowed in this zoning. I'm assuming it's under one of the other use groups or as an accessory use. And Tom, you're welcome to reply in the chat to see if I have that correct. You do say the only changes for the parking, maybe the only material change, the change is the zoning district. Is that also correct? I'm waiting to see if he writes back.
He also said that the discussion with Brad Lander's office is over preferred uses or makerspace. Just encouraging, sort of less office and more industrial manufacturing use.
So Tom is writing, the only change is to waive the parking, but you're asking for a new zoning district.
That's how they get the waiver of the parking.
There are changes in use. There's also use changes in the district.
Yeah, that's, I'm sorry, yeah. If it was a waiver in parking, we just would be dealing with that. We're changing the zoning district from M21 to M23.
Way they're saying the
Right.
zoning change itself eliminates the parking requirement.
Okay, so
So
Tom
is
says,
everyone
yes,
good
that
with
is how
this?
you get the waiver according to city planning. Okay, so they're getting the waiver on the parking because they're changing the zoning district. So I would suggest if we want to encourage more diversity of use or more industrial space, then that should be part of the motion. Otherwise, I still say we should just stay with the original motion and then ask them to come back. They've already said it in the chat that they will, so.
And we could also encourage them to share their design for the Esplanade to produce the best public amenity possible that will discourage negative use. Eric's got his hand up.
Eric, go ahead.
Peter, if I can, I would call the question for the original motion.
I'll second that.
And David, you were going to read the
Okay.
motion again.
Yeah, let David
I-
read the motion, please.
Well, let's see. Recommendation to approve rezoning contingent on outcome of restrictive declaration negotiations with the following condition: design a more creative public amenity along the promenade based on the committees and community's feedback.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so again, we're going to presume you're in favor of it unless you post in the chat that you're against.
Do we have a definite second on this?
I seconded the calling. of
Yeah,
the
Jerry
question and
just
also
seconded.
the motion.
Okay.
Okay, so again, anyone is against this? All right. No objections, David, your next motion, please.
Okay, so the last thing we looked at, actually, we looked at it before Monadnock, was DCP's presentation for zoning for coastal flood resiliency. DCP is seeking community feedback and comments by December 28th. They took us through this presentation. It's pretty detailed. Ty, I guess we can just run through it.
Yeah, there are 44 slides, so I'm just going to scroll through if you want to.
Okay, so there was a look back in terms of what happened in Hurricane Sandy, where the floodplains are, what the projections are in the future, and how they intend on dealing with resiliency issues along waterways in New York City. I would just reinforce, this is not just for Gowanus, it's for all waterways. There's a lot of detail here. As you can see in some of these renderings, they're raising yards, they're putting up encouraging flood panels, elevating mechanical equipment, simplifying the procedures, keeping residential units up off the first floor. There's been some interim measures that I've seen over at Red Hook, I know. Keep going, Ty. I'm just looking for stuff that sort of call. So as you can see, Gowanus is in this blue boundary, which expands above beyond the 1% floodplain zone. Sorry, I can't see all this. Got a chat in the way here. Keep going, Ty. As you can see, the design flood elevation is quite a bit high in some of our communities. They expect it to get higher. And the additional height required to meet some of these new regulations would be exempted from zoning restrictions on height. You would start at the floodplain base elevation rather than the street elevation, which is where you usually start. Keep going. And you can see, depending on just I'm sorry, Ty, just go back to that just for a second. You can see, depending on whether you're in a yellow zone or a red zone, your design flood elevation, where it's measured from, can change. They're trying to encourage some flood proofing of ground floors. And you can see on both slides there, the wet, I guess what they call wet flood proofing, where they have these panels that open and close so the waters can go in and out in spaces like garages.
So what's the motion on this?
So the committee just recommended to approve it as presented. We did ask them or encourage them to reach out to other community groups, particularly the CAG and Resilient Red Hook, to seek input since they had not been approached yet. I know there has been a lot of public meetings around this. It was just those two groups hadn't seen this. Maybe members of those groups have, but not the entire group. And certainly I would say on behalf of the CAG, where I am a member, given that all the things that are sort of intersecting there in terms of Superfund and how the zoning affects that, this is another piece of a very complex puzzle. And they did assure us they would come back to us now. There's a long process here to get this approved. Ariel, you had a really good point that I tried to write down here about. It had to do with the fact that they were making special considerations for nursing homes, and you pointed out, well, it shouldn't just be nursing homes, it should be for the entire community.
My point was more that if we can live, we're trying to make a case for living in flood zone. So if we can live in flood zone, everyone should be able to live in flood zone. And so
right.
they were making, and so it's kind of this weird thing that, well, it's not good for some people. So that was it. And I conceptually get it, but it opens up the door to a lot of other concerns that a lot of people have about living in the flood zone. And so I feel like that doesn't send a great message. We should be building to be able to live there or not, you know, and that was my.
David,
Oh, it was well said.
David, am I correct that you did not have a quorum and you need a motion on this?
You are correct, sir.
Yes, before we discuss further, let's have a motion.
So moved.
Second?
I second it. Sorry.
Great. Any discussion beyond what we've already had?
Just one point I want to make. We saw the preliminary
Sure.
to these changes to the zoning probably 2.5, 3 years ago. And I just want to say, I couldn't make the meeting, but looking at the presentation the day of and afterwards, I think it's improved from where it was, and it's about as complete as you can get. Yes, you can make it more complete. There's a nice example in there on one of the slides of a building, just a new building on Van Brunt Street in Red Hook, multiple with multiple rooms. I think it's about 5-6 stories high. The way they made the entrance and the ramps to accommodate not only regular people, but anybody who's handicapped, so that raising the building would not present a problem. And I think it's a great addition to the zoning code.
I agree.
Anybody else? Okay, we're again going to assume that you're in favor of this unless you post in the chat that you're against it, please. Again, if you're explaining for cause for any reason, please note that. Okay, that motion passes. Thank you, David. Good luck with your exam.
Peter, if I may, just indulge me for 1 minute.
Yeah, sure.
I just want to say before I sign off here that you know, it's been a rough year and sometimes a very emotional year. I was on a memorial service virtual call the other day for my aunt, and I just want to thank everybody at the community for staying involved and staying committed. And I wish all of you the best holiday season you could possibly have. Have a drink, have a cocktail, have a sip of water. I look forward to seeing all of you in 2021.
Same to you, David. Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
Good luck.
So one of the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go back and we're going to approve the minutes of the last meeting. Once again, if you have any desire to any changes to suggest, please put them in the chat. And if you wish to either abstain or vote against the approval of those minutes, please note that in the chat as well. Okay, we're going to, can we have a vote, please, in favor of approving the minutes then? Aye.
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 Great,
Aye.
thank you, everyone. Do we have anyone that has signed up for community session, which we're going to do first? We have one abstention noted.
Peter, we do have
Is there
one
anyone that
member of
wishes
the
to speak at community?
community.
Yeah, Mac Thayer, I see your name there. If you'd like to speak, you have up to 3 minutes, please. Please.
I just
unmute
need a second to
yourself, or
I need a
if
second to
Ty has
unmute
to
it.
do it.
Second, that's me, Leroy.
Second.
Okay, Mac should be unmuted now.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Again, you have 3 minutes.
Can anybody see me or is it just audio?
Just audio.
Just audio.
Okay, thanks. And I'm not sure actually how many people are at the meeting. Does anybody know? I see like 20 people on my screen, but I'm not sure.
There's like 30 or 40 people here.
Okay, great.
66.
There's 30 or 40 people here.
Oh, great. Well, thank you.
Oh, even more.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to say a few words. My question really was just about how you guys, as representatives of the community, are getting information about what the community wants and how you guys make your decisions based on that. And just as an example, you know, myself along with a few friends formed our community group, GoHonestLands.org, this summer. The idea being to advocate for a park, a community park on public place. We've got 1,000 signatures now on our petition for that proposal. So lot of people in the community are really interested in a park. But, that's just 1,000 people. There's like, thousands of people in the community. So what we've decided to do is to do a statistical professional poll of the community to get a sense of, how many people throughout the community are actually interested in having a park on the site. And we'd be happy to share those results, with you guys as well as we do it. But that kind of got me thinking, like, for major decisions such as the rezoning, these are affecting a lot of people in a big way where they don't really have a vote on that. There's no like voting process for that. And so my question is, how does the community board make a decision on that? How do you guys think about what the community wants, and how do you take that into your own decision-making process? Do you have tools to do that? Is there kind of any polling you're doing, or like a voting process? Or is it just kind of like what the individuals feel like, or how they get influenced at the community board meetings? I'm genuinely curious. So I don't know if there's if this is a time.
Sure.
Exchange.
I'll
but that's
give you,
my
I
question.
can give you a brief answer. In normal times, most public input is gathered at committee meetings. Community board meetings are open, but only community board members can speak. But our committee meetings, pretty much anyone who asks to be recognized can speak. So when an issue comes up, such as the rezoning, we would ordinarily hold one or more committee meetings, and we would offer people an opportunity to state their position after they listen to the appropriate agency making, a presentation. In these troubled times, our meetings have moved to Zoom. So we're doing this all online, but and it remains to be seen how unwieldy a process that turns out to be with the rezoning. Not a person terribly inclined to prayer, but that is something that I pray about occasionally, because I'm not sure exactly where that's going to go. But mostly, it is committee meetings where that kind of input is sought. We ask the committee members to listen to what the community has to say, and to use that in making their decision. And as a former chair of Landmarks and Land Use, I can say that we always paid a good bit of attention to the comments from community members. So that, perfect or not, that is that's the efforts that we make. And generally it has worked in our to everyone's benefit. Not every decision we make has universal appeal to everyone, but we do what we can. And we're governed by the city charter, and that's the kind of input that they suggest that we need to seek. Again, and it remains to be seen how unwieldy a process that becomes with not being able to hold in-person committee meetings over the winter. So there's the answer to that question. And I'm happy to, if you want any further conversation on that, just ask Mike, and he can put you in touch with me, and I'm happy to have a private conversation with you about it.
Hey,
at your convenience.
I'm not sure if I'm still muted or not, but thank you for the answer. I appreciate that. I've been thinking about this a little bit, over the past couple months, so I appreciate
But
it.
again, if you wish to have a private conversation on it, I'm happy to talk to you about it.
Yeah, it sounds great. I'll reach out through to you and Mike by email.
Thank you. Yeah. And as I said, he can put you in touch with me. No problem. So we're going to move on. The next committee to hear from is permits and licenses, and that would be Rachel. Rachel,
Hi.
remember to unmute.
Yep. Hello. So we had one applicant, and we did have a quorum. So the applicant was 285 Nevins Street, which was the former Freaks Mill site. And the two men that are going to be running the site are, it's going to be called Victor, right? Let me see. yeah, Victor. And they have a long history of running businesses. The one was the opening executive chef of Buttermilk Channel, and the other one owns and runs French Louis. And so the new restaurant, this is the new collaboration between the two of them. And so we did have a quorum, and so the motion was approved.
So that motion is on the floor. Are there any comments or questions about it?
They gave a whole lot of stuff, a bag or 2 bags of cement.
Again, anybody having a comment or question? I'm sorry, I'm hearing voices, but I'm not sure if that's just background. Hearing none, we're going to call the question. If you're not in favor of this motion, please note so in the chat.
I do just want to say, sorry, we did have community members that did appear, and they had a couple of concerns just about the noise, because there had been some issues with Freaks Mill and noise. But at that point, when they started discussing that, they assured the community members that they would post signs to be kind to your neighbors and things like that, and that they would work with the dialogue if there were any issues. And then the community members were very excited about having them be part of the be opening there. So it really did turn around.
Great. Again, if you are against this motion, please note so in the chat, either that you're against or that you're abstaining with or without cause. Otherwise, we're going to assume that you're in favor of it. Anybody? Hearing none, we approve that message. If you are a representative of an elected official, I ask you to just sort of please note your presence in the chat so that Mike can keep track of them and text them to me. Otherwise, I'm going to start with the first one I see, which is Dan Wiley representing Congresswoman Nydia Velasquez.
Okay,
Remember
thanks.
to unmute, Dan.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Peter. Where to begin? I just topped off a Gowanus Conservancy meeting, which is their annual meeting, and they had a lively conversation about infrastructure, net zero CSOs, park maintenance, how to program and get access along the canal, and following the rezoning very carefully. So I just wanted to highlight one thing that I'd mentioned. The Congressman met with the regional administrator, and of course we kicked off the dredging of the Gowanus Canal main water body. She also is very interested in EPA participating in a public meeting, kind of like what you were a conduit for with DEP and the infrastructure. And that was a great meeting on infrastructure that really got into a lot of weeds, no pun intended. But since EPA has a water division that's in charge of the Clean Water Act, and there's a long-term control plan and this unified stormwater management rule and all that other stuff, to try to have a further discussion, EPA will be reaching out to the agencies to see if we'll do another meeting to unpack that a little more. A lot going on, of course, with the last mile delivery. It's the holiday season. We've been getting complaints about the Van Brunt Post Office 11215 and the postal trucks parking and personal vehicles parking all over the place, of course. And I have a 3-year-old too. So parcels, you know, it's a huge issue. There's almost 5 million square feet of space that's accounted for between Red Hook and Sunset Park, both sides of Gowanus Bay, for last mile delivery logistics. So it's showing the demand. But we experienced that in the holiday season, particularly with all these packages. And so the issues of the truck route, we continue talking with DOT and the other agencies for Red Hook, but also how to manage with existing postal service. And the interesting thing is some of these last mile delivery companies have outbid the U.S. Postal Service that, the U.S. Post Office that actually leases some space around Gowanus to manage its trucks and its parcels. So just want to highlight, this is something, we're trying to work on and very concerned. Lastly, it's not in the district per se, but the Metropolitan Detention Center, you might have seen an op-ed in the New York Times today, opinion editorial board article about conditions and COVID in the facility with the outbreak, of like 60 inmates, and our concerns about the measures that are being taken by the facility and better communication and trying to see what we can do. So we put a letter to the warden and we've been working with a number of advocacy groups and the federal defenders. And of course, that's in Community Board 7, but I thought I'd mention it since it is the federal prison in Brooklyn, just to your south. So I guess I'm over my time, but from Congresswoman Nydia Velázquez, happy holiday and stay safe.
Great. But I understand that State Senator Kavanaugh is on. Before we let him speak, I know Mike has a comment that he wants to make.
Thanks, Peter. I just wanted to say, I know this is a very weird thing, but there are people in the chat impersonating other people. And so specifically, I'm going to say it's Salvatore and Amelia. I know who they are. I know the actual people have reached out. So please, it's just, if you oppose, making sarcastic comments either way, please, this with the amount of complaints we've gotten about the chat and the comments and how vile it is, through the roof. So please, otherwise it's going to be impossible to keep having the chat because it distracts from the presentations. And we have your public emails if that's the case. So please and it's all on the record. So, and I share them. I don't know too many people that would want to read them, but please, sign up as yourself, I guess, if you want to do that. Anyway, yes, and tell you guys I know you're here. All right, that was it. And then I guess jump on to Mr. Kavanaugh.
State Senator Brian Kavanaugh.
I have to say I've been on a lot of Zoom meetings, and that's a new concern, the impersonating in the chat room problem. So I'm glad you're addressing it. I'll be brief. I know you got a long agenda, and the hour's a bit late. Apologize. I'm just arriving after we've had a bunch of meetings tonight. But just very briefly, brief update on housing issues. We are at a point where evictions, although there are still lots of protections that we've put in place, they have resumed in New York. The first New York City eviction that we know of was a couple of weeks ago in Brooklyn, not in your catchment area, but not too far. And, that's going to accelerate unless we can reinstate the eviction moratorium that had been in place. We've been urging the governor to do that. That's basically effectively a partial moratorium, that limits that activity, but does not prevent it from the CDC and also from the governor and the courts. So we're trying to work with the governor to get him to just do it through executive order. And if not, I and others have been pushing legislation to address that, and I think it is urgent that we do it. We also are trying to upgrade we have a modest program that's intended to cover rent of the neediest people. It's called the Emergency Rent Relief Act. You may have seen that. There was some concerns about not all the money, it was only $100 million to begin with, and not all the money was spent. We're working again with the governor's office to try to retool that program to ease the eligibility criteria and get more relief to more people. We are also, we're ending the calendar year. Our fiscal year runs April to March in New York. So we're still in the midst of the 2020-2021 fiscal year. We're still estimating about a $15 billion expense budget deficit for this coming year, this current year, and an additional $15 billion in the next year. That's going to be very challenging. We are talking about whether there's any steps we can take before the end of the calendar year or early in January to begin to raise additional revenue, mostly focusing on taxes and other things that would fall on people who've done well during this pandemic, but people with large incomes, notwithstanding the economic activity. And we're talking about quite large, potentially millions of dollars in actual income. But we're still working through a lot of proposals there, and we'll try to keep you posted about that. I just want a note on Governor's Island. Governor's Island, of course, officially in New York falls in Manhattan Community Board 1's jurisdiction, but it is a very large piece of largely undeveloped land that is going to get developed, and it is geographically actually closer to Brooklyn than Manhattan. I know that Brooklyn Community Board 6 has scheduled a meeting with the Trust for Governor's Island, which is the public entity that manages the island, to present on this very extensive rezoning proposal. I think that is scheduled for the 21st of December in your waterfront committee. And Manhattan Community Board 1 is moving forward on the clock of a ULURP. But I do urge anybody on the board and really anybody hearing tonight, if you're in Brooklyn, this is an issue that Brooklynites should get involved in. There's a huge opportunity there, but also a huge potential impact if you're proposing to build 360-foot buildings on that island and a whole complex. It's going to have an effect. And also there's obviously questions about the limited access Brooklynites have to that, to the many amenities that can come with that island. So I just wanted to put in a plug for that today. Community Board 1 also has expressed a great interest in hearing from people directly if they're interested in Brooklynites as well as Manhattanites. So yeah, I think you could, if you're hearing this and have an interest, you can contact Manhattan Community Board 1 directly. Other than that, we continue to try to address the many issues that arise from the pandemic. I think you're all familiar with that. We are available to assist with organizations and any of your efforts, including we still have access to PPE and other resources that people may need. So please do contact us if you or any organization you're connected with need any assistance with that. I think I will stop there, other than I assume this would be the last full board meeting before we get into holidays. So just to wish all of you a happy holiday. And I know it's been a tough year, but hopefully happy and prosperous and maybe better in many respects 2021 to everybody. And I'm happy to take questions or comments if people have them.
Thank you, Senator. Okay, we're going to hear from Megan Flynn from Brad Lander's office.
Hi, everybody. So a couple of updates. One of them is that we have some new social media handles that we're using. So we're kind of slowly switching over some district stuff to NYC District 39. So that's Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. So please follow us there. Obviously, like Brad still has his Twitter, and we'll be tweeting, but we will be tweeting district information from those accounts. So please go follow us there. Our office has a vast amount of hand sanitizer and masks. So if you are interested in need more or want to give them out, please email us at lander@council.nyc.gov, and we'll try and either coordinate with you to get someone there if you want to come pick them up or send them over to you in the mail. We're repurposing Fresh Direct bags, so you can drop them off in a couple locations in CB6, and then we've been giving them to food distribution sites. So in Park Slope, you can drop them off at 256 13th Street between Monday and Friday from 9 to 6. In Carroll Gardens at 71 3rd Place, Monday through Friday, 9 to 6. And in Cobble Hill, 359 Henry Street, Monday to Wednesday, 9 p.m. To 6. And an update we've had from Parks is that the Parks Department reached out to us to let us know that they will be reactivating most sport field permits this week with clear guidance going forward. And then permits in orange and red zones would be rescinded. In yellow zones, teens would be under heightened restrictions, but permits will remain in place. And I know a lot of people had reached out to our office about that. We also wanted to note that, we know this is a scary time for small businesses, and we're working on our small business lease recovery program. But in the meantime, for the holidays, you can support local businesses by giving out digital gift cards that the Fifth Avenue bid has. And you can learn more about that on their site, The Other Fifth. And a happy holidays and happy new year. And if you guys have any other questions or concerns, you can email us at lander@council.nyc.gov. Thanks and happy holidays.
Great. Edward Cerna from Bill de Blasio's office.
Hello, everyone. Edward Cerna, Brooklyn Borough Director for the Mayor's Office of Community Affairs. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Daniel Abramson's predecessor. I came on shortly before the shutdown. So, for those of you that don't know me, happy to see you all. Just quickly, the city is facing a number of challenges, right? The economy still recovering from COVID. We have cases going up, but one of those challenges is blood supply. Last week, the city launched the Give Blood campaign, and we're asking New Yorkers to step up and 20,000 New Yorkers more to step up and donate blood by the end of the month. There are some incentive prizes that are being given out, but your donation can literally save someone's life. So if you're able to, please visit nybc.org/givebloodnyc so you can donate the gift of life, essentially. Secondly, today the mayor announced that the city is expected to receive 465,000 doses of the COVID-19 vaccine by the beginning of January. In accordance with state and CDC guidelines, initial doses are expected to be given to nursing homes and healthcare professionals performing high-risk activities. And then heading into the spring of next year, to ensure equity and distribution, the city will also prioritize vaccination for residents and communities of color in the 27 neighborhoods that have been disproportionately hit hard by the pandemic. A similar process will also take place for the Moderna vaccine. So we just really need to stay strong, observe social distancing through these last couple of weeks and the holiday, and then hopefully, we'll get those doses and make them widely available. My email is ecerna@cityhall.nyc.gov. So if you have any other questions pertinent to the mayor's office, please feel free to reach out. Thank you and happy holidays.
Great, thank you. We have Taika from Scott Stringer's office.
Hi, everyone. My name is Taika Haraguchi, and I'm the Brooklyn Borough Liaison for Comptroller Scott Stringer. It's great to be back here tonight with Community Board 6. I just have a couple of announcements. So our office just released our annual Making the Grade report. This is an annual report that issues letter grades to city agencies based on their level of success, spending with minority and woman-owned business enterprises. That's what MWBE stands for. The grades are based on the framework of Local Law 1 of 2013, which set MWBE participation goals for mayoral agencies. So each year, this report assigns letter grades to 32 mayoral agencies plus the Comptroller's office. Unlike other MWBE reporting produced by the City of New York, Making the Grade measures the actual spending of each agency in a fiscal year. So the goal of this report is to shine a light on the city's spending with minority and woman-owned firms and to encourage all city agencies to increase MWBE utilization. In order to further increase transparency, our office has created a set of dynamic interactive maps that illustrate the city's spending with certified MWBEs by race, ethnicity, and gender, community district and borough from fiscal years 2011 to 2016. So these maps highlight where MWBE spending is and is not happening and can be used as a tool to better understand the MWBE landscape in New York City. The Comptroller has made this a priority, and we know that the city and all agencies can commit to improving their MWBE letter grades because we've seen quite a few improvements internally as a result of our own advocacy in this area in comparison to when we began 7 years ago. So just a couple of quick examples. For instance, the comptroller appointed a chief diversity officer 7 years ago and director of diversity and Bureau Asset Management, with the result that today our cabinet is very diverse. It is 70% women and 38% people of color. The mayor followed suit, and he also issued an executive order to appoint chief diversity officers, and the Charter Commission codified the MWBE program. We made it a goal to hold city agencies accountable. So we graded city agencies on MWBE spending. We surveyed 500 plus MWBEs on the impact of COVID-19. So that resulted in New York City going from 21 to 5 underperforming agencies. And the comptroller's office will now require the mayor's office to submit justification from MWBE goals during registration. This also resulted in 77 new women and people of color on corporate boards, 13 corporations that now incorporate the Rooney Rule, and now US companies are committing $1.5 billion for early stage managers that fall under the requirements of a MWBE letter grade. So I'm going to drop this report in the chat box so that you can see further some of the work that we've done here. And finally, we also called for direct support to help New Yorkers experiencing homelessness as winter approaches, and to move the homeless population off the streets into shelter and housing. For the sake of brevity, I won't dive in, but I will also provide this report in the chat box. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have Donna Newton from Joanne Simon's office. Please
Hi,
remember to unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me. I want to keep it really, really brief. All of the people who are representative electeds here tonight who've spoken ahead of me have covered off on a wide array of topics that I know are of interest to all of you. Joanne sends her best. She was speaking this evening at a ranked choice voting forum, so she couldn't be in 2 places at once. Essentially, I just want to say both myself and Olavia Bello have joined Joanne's staff as of last week, so we're brand new. And we're sort of absorbing everything. And I've been a fly on the wall at several of the meetings, including and the hearings. And you all have opened my eyes a great deal. I thank you all for that. In terms of updates, you've heard a lot from everybody. I'm not going to bore you with any stuff that you already know. I would like to point out that today, in the snow and the wind, Brian Kavanaugh was there as well. The groundbreaking happened under the Brooklyn Bridge on the Emily Roebling Plaza, which will connect the 2 areas of Brooklyn Bridge Park, which we're excited to see, and we think that will be a great thing. And it's supposed to be completed in a year, so we'll see about that. Also, Joanne was part of the group that heard testimony this morning from a number of law students who had enormous issues with the online bar exam that happened in October of this year. Definitely people are seeking to make changes for that. And as we all know, I think many people here who are in attendance now have firsthand knowledge of how difficult education is through a virtual platform. The other thing I just want to say is usually at least 4 out of 5 days during the week, we're going to try to have somebody actually in the district office on Smith Street. If you ever need anything, you want to stop by, please, there will be a plexiglass panel between us, but we're happy to see you always. Happy to get your emails, happy to get your phone calls, want to know what's going on with you, want to know what you're thinking. And we want to wish you and your families and everyone that you love the very best of holiday seasons and a much, much better 2021.
Great. Thank you, Donna. Now we have Lauren from Methodist Hospital.
Hi all. Thank you for having me. Good evening. Good to see you all. First off, I just want to say thank you for your patience as we've all been enduring the water main work that's been going around the slope. There are some entrances that have been rerouted for visitors and patients and even staff. So we apologize for the inconvenience. There's going to be more water main work next week, but hopefully it will wrap up and no longer be normal operations will be underway as normal as they can be in these circumstances. I also wanted to announce that the Center for Community Health is going to be opening late January 2021. That's the new ambulatory care facility across the street from the hospital. The first services to come online will be our cancer center on the top floor. And much thanks to Eric McClure, who chaired our construction task force, Megan Flynn, Leroy Branch, and Emily Riquelme, who sat on the construction task force. It's been a long time in the making, and we are very grateful to the community board for sticking by us and with us as we've gone through this process. We also, just to let you know, there are a number of virtual support groups and programs that are happening at the hospital that have continued to happen. Breastfeeding support group, stroke support group, MS and Alzheimer's support groups. So I will put that information in the chat. And if you have any questions, and I'll put more information about the Center for Community Health, feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Lauren, for joining us. I appreciate it. We missed somebody earlier who wanted to speak in community session. If Eric Vath is still on, you're welcome to speak. I didn't see him, but I just wanted to make sure.
I don't think he's on anymore, Peter.
Okay. Okay. Is there any other elected official or representative that didn't get a chance to speak? Hearing none. Is there any new business? Also hearing none. Again, happy holidays to everyone. I wish you, the best holiday of whatever it is you're going to be celebrating in the next few weeks. Be safe, be careful, so that when we are ultimately able to gather again in person in 2021, that your smiling face will still be with us. So happy holidays to everyone. And thank you for joining us tonight. And we will see you the second Wednesday in January. Be well.
See you
And
next
Dan, your
year. All the
son is very
best,
cute.
Peter.
I
And
need
everybody else have a happy.
Bye. Happy holiday.
Thank you, Bridget.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Dan, stop trying to make him be quiet. He said